Lesson 4-1, Order of Operations. By the end of today's lesson, you will be able to use the order of operations to compute with whole numbers. Now remember to be taking notes as you go along through today's lesson, and pause the video whenever you need to in order to learn a part or to make sure that you're taking the notes that you need to. If I asked you to find the value of n in 2 times 8 plus 4 times 5, I may get a few different answers. In order to avoid this, mathematicians around the world have agreed on specific rules for computing expressions called the order of operations. The order of operations goes parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. Many of you may have seen it written out like this. PEMDAS. I'm going to change that just a little bit, and it's going to look like this. A big P, E, then I'm going to do M right above the D, and the A right above the S. So it's still those same letters, they're just written slightly different. This is so we don't get stuck thinking we always have to do the multiply before we do divide or add before we do subtract. So if we write it out like this, we'll remember that we're going to just multiply or divide before we add or subtract, but we can do these in whatever order they come first. We're going to work left to right in the problem, so if division comes before multiplication, we do that first. Same with adding and subtracting. We're just going to work left to right in the problem. If a subtraction problem comes before an adding problem, we're going to do that first in the equation. So if you remember it like this, capital P-E, then M-D-A-S, you'll remember that it doesn't matter what order these two come in. You're going to do multiply and divide before you add and subtract, but you work left to right in each of these. One other thing to remember in these is that this P for parentheses, it also includes any grouping symbols. So that's going to be anything that is a parentheses, or it's going to be brackets. It also includes fraction bars. So you'll do these three first before you move on to exponents, multiply, divide, and add and subtract. So let's take a look at the first problem. Francis has 215 apples in each of 2 crates. 3 other crates have 150 apples each. How many apples does Francis have in all? To solve this problem, we would take a look at the apples she has in the first 2 crates. So she has 2 times 215 apples plus the other crates, which would be 3 times 150. Now, using our order of operations, we would start with multiplying first, left to right. So we would start right here with 2 times 215. That would give us 430. Now we bring our addition sign down. Then we need to take a look here at 3 times 150. That equals 450. So we've done our multiply first. Now all that's left is to add. 430 plus 450, which would equal, let me erase that. Which would equal 880. So Francis has 880 apples in all. So our first step was to multiply. We didn't have any parentheses, we didn't have any exponents, so we started right out with multiplication, and then we went into addition after that. Let's take a look at another example. So we have 42 divided by 7 times 3 minus 4 divided by 2 plus 10 squared. We need to remember our order of operations, so I'm going to write those down just so that way we can remind ourselves. So we have them written right up there. So we're first going to start with P, parentheses. So here we have 42 divided by 7. That's what we're going to do first. So 42 divided by 7 would equal 6. Then we can rewrite the problem. 6 times 3 minus 4 divided by 2 plus 10 squared. So we've taken care of all of our parentheses. The next one would be E, exponents. Right here we have an exponent, 10 squared. So 10 squared would equal 100. So we just recopy 6 times 3 minus 4 divided by 2 plus 100. Now we've taken care of the first two. Now we're going to multiply and divide going from left to right. So even though I have a division here, I have multiplication that comes first because I'm working left to right. So we have 6 times 3, which would equal 18, minus 4 divided by 2, which equals 2, plus 100. Now all that's left is to add and subtract, and we just do that going from left to right. So now we're going to start with 18 minus 2, which equals 16, plus 100. 16 plus 100 equals 116. Here's a shorter example to look at. We have 4/10 times 10 cubed. So our first order would be the exponents. We don't have any parentheses, so we start at the exponents, and that would equal 1,000. So we would rewrite it as 4/10 times 1,000. And then all that's left is to multiply, so that equals 400. There it goes. Okay, let's take a look at the next example. We have 48 minus 3 minus 1 to the third power. So first we're going to start off with our parentheses here. We have 3 minus 1. That equals 2. So we rewrite it 48 minus 2, and we keep that power, 2 to the third power. Now our next step would be to do the exponents. So we have 48 minus 2 to the third power, which equals 8. Now all that's left is to subtract. 48 minus 8 equals 40. Okay, let's take a look at our last example. We have 5 squared minus 1.4 over 4. So we're going to start using our order of operations. We can't jump right in to doing this fraction because we don't know what each of these part equals. So we have to break it down and get it into a simple number that we can divide first. So we're going to start here with our exponent. So we have 5 squared, which would equal 25 minus 1.4 over 4. Now we still can't do that fraction. We still need to simplify this top. So now we have 25 minus 1.4, which would equal 23.6 over 4. Now we can do that division, and when we divide that, 23.6 over 4, it equals 5.9. So that's today's lesson on order of operations. Remember to go back and rewatch any parts of the video that you need to.